statements in the Bible, if you ask me. She snapped open her new folding fan and attempted to create a draft around her face to cool her overheated skin. "Revenge for what they did to my son should be mine." It came out in clipped, angry tones. Alex didn't reply. In this, she and Matthew were in total agreement. Ian had been shot by the Burleys while fending off an attack on Matthew, and, as an unfortunate consequence, had fallen off his horse, landing on a rock. His lower vertebrae had been damaged, and Ian would never again move easily through his days. Easily enough, Alex smiled, watching Ian thread his way towards them with Betty by his side. Betty, on the other hand, puffed like a whale, one hand on her protruding belly. "You should have stayed at home," Alex eyed her daughter-in-law, thinking she looked like a balloon about to burst. "I didn't want to." Betty's hand tightened on Ian's sleeve. Where Ian went, there went Betty, wife and head nurse rolled into one, and as protective as an aggressive cobra when it came to her husband's dignity. "As long as you don't give birth on the horse," Alex said. "Oh, I'm sure I'll have warning enough to get off it first," Betty grinned, making Alex laugh. "I'm not really sure why I'm here." Alex moved closer to Matthew. She hated hangings. From the first one she had witnessed, hidden in a thicket on a hillside, to the subsequent ones she had been forced to watch. They all made her feel sick and distinctly aware of how fragile her neck was. She rubbed a hand along the side of her throat and swallowed. Could one swallow when the noose tightened? And afterwards, while you hung dangling like a side of beef, did you still swallow? Want to swallow? "You don't have to watch, lass," Matthew said, drawing her close. "I hope it's quick," she sighed against his shoulder. It wasn't quick. It was a long, protracted affair, and however much Alex agreed that Stephen had this coming to him, she was still horrified by the slow strangulation, the choking, desperate sounds that emanated from the dying man as he struggled to drag air into his lungs. Much better in her time. At least capital punishment no longer existed in the 21st century. She amended. It didn't back home in Scotland. But weren't they still executing people in the US? Alex allowed her thoughts to meander freely, her eyes closed to the scene on the gallows, where Stephen Burley was still twitching. This was 1684, a century more or less before the United States of America broke free from the mother country. And here, in the colony of Maryland, Alex Graham, born 1976, stood, hiding her face against her husband's coat. Totally impossible, entirely ludicrous, but there you are. Sometimes strange things happen, even if dropping 300 years backwards through time had to qualify as being beyond strange, right? The people around her cheered and catcalled when the next condemned prisoner was led up to the scaffold. Alex peeked. "One more." "Get me out of here," she said. "I don't want to see this." Matthew took a firm grip of her hand and made his way out of the throng. He paused in the scarce shade afforded by the meeting-house and studied her with a little crease between his brows. "All right, then." "Yes." She looked down the narrow main street and back at where Ian and Betty were extricating themselves from the crowd. Ian was limping as he approached them, face drawn with one of those sudden bursts of pain that assailed him. Alex knew better than to voice her concern. At best it would be met with an irritated comment that she should not meddle in matters that weren't her concern. Besides, it was his life, and Betty was capable of giving him whatever help he needed. "Where's Ruth?" she said instead, standing on her toes to look around. From her vantage point, right at the edge of the small square that housed the meeting-house, she could see most of Providence. 4 larger streets extended like the spokes of a wheel from the central docks and wharves, situated 300 yards or so downhill from where she was standing. The streets were lined with narrow houses, most of them wood, here and there in brick or stone. Only Main Street was cobbled, the others were no more than dirt roads, and its gutters were decorated with the contents of chamber pots, garbage in general, and the odd tenacious dandelion. To her right she could make out the recently painted exterior of the Anglican church, home to a growing congregation of non-Puritans, as yet a minority, but capably led and represented by their cheerful Reverend William Norton. Most of